The thing nobody knew about. The green room was freezing. They always kept places like this cold, something about the cameras overheating. Bruce Lee sat backstage in a worn, sagging couch, wearing a plain dark suit. Nothing fancy, nothing designed to impress. His hands were trembling slightly, not because of the demonstration he was about to perform, not because of the board breaking or the techniques, because of the other thing, the thing nobody knew about. This was NBC Studios in Burbank, March 1971, The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Bruce was here because his agent had spent 6 full months making it happen. 6 months of phone calls, 6 months of pitching, 6 months of patiently explaining to Carson's team that Bruce Lee was considerably more than just the guy who appeared in the Green Hornet. 6 months to get 15 minutes on the biggest talk show in America. The room smelled like old coffee. In the corner, a small television showed what was happening on stage. Johnny Carson was working through his opening monologue, jokes about Richard Nixon, jokes about money and the economy. The audience laughed right on cue, polished, perfect. 20 million people were watching. Bruce knew what that number meant. Do well on this show and doors open. Stumble and those same doors close just as quickly. 15 minutes. A production assistant appeared in the doorway, young, maybe 23, headset around her neck, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Lee, you're on in 15 minutes, right after the commercial." "Thank you." She left. Bruce stood up and began pacing. His stomach felt tight, not sick, just coiled. He had done demonstrations before, broken boards on camera, shown techniques in front of audiences. That part didn't worry him. He could do that in his sleep. It was the other thing, the thing Carson didn't know about, the thing nobody knew about except Linda and maybe 2 other people. That was what was making his hands shake. He sat back down and focused on his breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Calm down. This is just another show, just another demo. Except it wasn't. This one was personal. This one mattered more than any of the others. Down the hallway. When the assistant came back to collect him, Bruce followed her through a maze of backstage corridors, past dressing rooms, waiting guests, crew members moving fast with papers and headsets. The hallway opened into the stage area. Lights everywhere, cameras rolling on tracks, the famous Tonight Show curtain. Ed McMahon was standing to one side, holding a mug that probably wasn't filled with coffee. He looked Bruce over. "You're the kung fu guy, right?" "Martial artist, yes." "You gonna break some boards?" "Maybe." "Good. Audience loves that. Looks exciting. Better than actors sitting around talking about their movies." The introduction. The commercial ended. Carson was back on camera, exchanging easy jokes with Ed. His timing was flawless. 9 years of doing this had made it look effortless. He had a gift for making 20 million people feel like he was speaking only to them. "Our next guest," Carson said, "is a martial arts expert who appeared on the Green Hornet and in several films. He's here to show us some amazing moves and maybe teach me how to protect myself from my ex-wife's lawyers. Please welcome Bruce Lee." The band played. The curtain opened. Bruce walked out. The lights hit harder than he expected, brighter, more immediate. He couldn't really see the audience beyond them. He could only sense them, hundreds of people sitting in the dark, watching. Carson stood, shook his hand, gestured to the guest chair. Bruce sat. The chair sat noticeably lower than Carson's desk, a deliberate arrangement that made the host appear taller and more in command. Bruce recognized the setup immediately. There was nothing to be done about it. The questions begin. "So, Bruce Lee, welcome to the show. So, you're a martial arts expert. Is that the same thing as karate?" "Not exactly. I practice Chinese martial arts. I started with Wing Chun, and now I teach my own system called Jeet Kune Do."
Jeet Kune Do. That sounds very exotic. What does it mean? The way of the intercepting fist. The idea is to stop an attack before it fully develops, to meet it while it's still beginning. Carson nodded with an expression that politely suggested he had understood none of that. Very interesting. And you can break boards with your bare hands? Yes. Can you show us? Bruce smiled to himself. Of course, this was always where it started, the show trick, the thing that looked impressive on television, but barely scratched the surface of what martial arts actually was. But this was television, and television had its requirements. Yes, I can. Stagehands brought out a pine board, roughly an inch thick. They held it steady. Carson remained safely behind his desk. Now, doesn't that hurt, hitting solid wood with your bare hand? Only if you do it wrong. The audience laughed. Bruce positioned himself, focused, and struck. Fast, clean, complete. The board cracked in two. The sound echoed through the studio. The audience gasped, then broke into applause. Carson picked up one of the broken pieces and examined it with theatrical suspicion. That's incredible. Are you sure this isn't a trick board? You're welcome to check it. It's real wood. I believe you. I believe you. I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that. The size question. Carson set down the board and returned to his desk. So, Bruce, can martial arts actually work in a real fight, or is it more for show? Bruce's expression shifted, became more direct. Martial arts is very effective in real situations, but it isn't about fancy movements. It's about efficiency, using the least amount of effort to achieve the required result. But someone your size, Carson leaned forward slightly. You're what, 5'7", 140 pounds? Could you genuinely defend yourself against someone much bigger? There it was, the size question. Bruce had heard it 1,000 times in 1,000 different rooms. It never changed. Size matters less than most people assume. If you understand body mechanics, if you know the right points to strike, if your timing is correct, size becomes far less relevant. Carson leaned back, thinking. Then that familiar look crossed his face, the mischievous glint that regular viewers recognized as the signal that Carson was about to do something. Tell you what, I'm 6'1", about 180. You think you could take me? The audience laughed, nervous, uncertain. Was he serious? Was this about to become something? Bruce smiled, stayed measured. If we fought, honestly, you'd have some advantages. Reach, weight, but I'd have some advantages too. Training, experience, understanding of structure. So it would be a fair fight? Nothing is fair in a real fight. That's exactly why you train, to make unfair situations survivable. Carson paused. That's actually quite profound. He smiled, the philosopher martial artist. Then he shifted in his chair, and something changed in his tone. I heard something interesting about you, though, something your agent mentioned. Is it true you play piano? Bruce's stomach dropped. There it was. I play a little, yes. A little? That's modest. I heard you're actually quite good, that you studied for years in Hong Kong. I studied when I was young, haven't played much recently. Carson's eyes lit up. He had found something, a real story beneath the surface, something unexpected and human. We have a piano right here, Doc's piano. He gestured toward the stage. Would you play us something? The audience applauded immediately, enthusiastic, encouraging, excited by the prospect of watching the intense martial artist do something completely unexpected, something vulnerable. Bruce hesitated. This was the moment. Every instinct said, say no.
Say no or say yes. There was no easy way out. Say no, and it looks like he's hiding something. Say yes, and he has to do something he hasn't done in front of people since he was 14 years old, since his mother died. I'm not sure that's a good idea, Bruce said. Why not? Carson asked. You afraid you'll be bad at something? It's not that. Then what is it? Bruce was quiet. 20 million people watching. Johnny Carson pushing. The audience waiting. No graceful exit available. Okay, he said quietly. I'll play. The audience applauded, louder this time, genuinely excited by what they were about to see. Carson stood and walked Bruce over to the piano. Doc Severinsen stepped aside and gave up his seat without a word. Bruce sat down on the bench. The keys were yellowed and worn smooth from years of Doc's hands. The studio lights reflected off the glossy black surface of the instrument. Bruce's hands hovered above the keys, not touching yet, just hovering. "What are you going to play?" Carson asked. "A Chinese piece, something my mother taught me. It's called Autumn Moon Over the Calm Lake." "Beautiful title." "It's a sad song, about loss, about memory, about the things you can't get back." The audience went quiet. Something in the room shifted. Everyone in that studio could sense it. This was no longer entertainment. This was something else. Something real was about to happen. The first note. Bruce's hands lowered to the keys. His fingers found their starting position through muscle memory from 25 years earlier, from when he was 9 years old, from when his mother would sit beside him on a bench just like this one, when everything in the world was still intact and whole and safe. He played the first note, then the second, then the melody began. The song was slow and melancholic, each note hanging in the air before the next one arrived, as if reluctant to let go. It wasn't technically demanding, no rapid runs, no complex chord progressions, just a simple, spare melody and soft harmony beneath it. But it was played with something that technique alone cannot produce, with weight, with memory, with feeling that had been stored somewhere untouched for a very long time. Bruce's eyes closed. His body swayed gently with the music. His hands knew exactly what to do. They had always known. The audience went completely still. Even Carson stopped. Not just stopped talking, stopped performing, stopped being Johnny Carson, the television host. He became, for those minutes, simply a man sitting and listening. The melody repeated, each variation slightly different from the last, each one adding another quiet layer, building, not toward a dramatic climax, but toward something gentler and harder, toward release, toward acceptance. Bruce played for 3 minutes, maybe 4. Time stopped mattering. There was only the music, only the memory, only the sensation of being 9 years old sitting beside his mother while she taught him this song and told him, in her gentle, patient way, about loss, about grief, about how music can hold feelings that words are simply too small to carry. The last note faded slowly into the studio air. Bruce lifted his hands from the keys. He opened his eyes and took a slow breath. Complete silence. 5 seconds. 10. Nobody moved. Then one person in the audience began to clap, slowly, deliberately. Then another joined. Then another. Then the entire studio was on its feet, a standing ovation, and scattered throughout that audience, people were crying, actually crying, not performing emotion, genuinely moved, tears on their faces, making no effort to hide it. Bruce stood, turned around and saw the audience. Then he saw Carson. Johnny Carson had tears running down his face. Not a performance, not a bit for the cameras, real tears, which he was trying quietly and unsuccessfully to wipe away, while 20 million people watched him fail to do so. Bruce walked back to the guest chair and sat down. The audience laughed, the released, relieved laughter of people whose emotional tension has just broken all at once. "I apologize," Carson said, composing himself with visible effort. "I didn't mean to get emotional, but that was beautiful. Where did you learn to play like that?" "My mother taught me, in Hong Kong when I was young." "Is she still—" "She passed away when I was 14. "I'm sorry. I lost my mother last year. There's no preparing for it, no matter how old you are when it happens." "No," Bruce said, "there isn't." They sat together in silence for a moment. 2 men on national television sharing grief without any pretense or performance. 20 million people watching 2 human beings acknowledge the one thing that connects every single person who has ever lived. That people leave, that time moves forward regardless, and that some things cannot be held on to no matter how tightly you try. "What the song was about?" Carson asked.
It's about the autumn moon reflecting on a calm lake, about how beauty can exist inside sadness. The moon's reflection looks perfect on still water, but the moment you reach out to touch it, it disappears. It's about learning to accept that some things are meant to be observed, not possessed. Carson was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something he rarely said on that stage, something unscripted and genuinely his own. My mother used to play piano. Nothing complicated, simple songs, hymns mostly. She'd play on Sunday evenings. My father and I would sit and listen. I haven't thought about that in years. He paused. Your playing just now brought it all back. Thank you for that. Music has a way of opening doors, to memories, to feelings, to things we've locked away and stopped looking at. It does. It really does. The rarest thing on television. Carson gathered himself and eased back toward host mode, but something fundamental had changed in the room. The professional polish was still there, but the performance underneath it was gone. These were just two people talking honestly. I have to ask, why don't you play more? If you play like that, why keep it hidden? Because people see me as one thing, the martial artist, the fighter, the tough guy. They don't want to see the other parts, the parts that feel things, that hurt, that remember. It's easier to simply be what people expect you to be. But you're more than that. Everyone is more than what people expect. We just choose which parts to show. Carson leaned forward. Can I tell you something? Off the record? Well, not off the record since 20 million people are watching, but honest. Sure. I've been doing this show for 9 years. I've interviewed thousands of people, actors, musicians, politicians, authors, every variety of public figure, and every single one of them was performing, showing their best face, selling something. That's what this show is. That's what television is. He paused. But what you just did, that wasn't a performance. That was real. That was honest. And honest is the rarest thing that ever appears on television. The audience applauded. They felt it too, the precise moment when the show had stopped being a show and become something else, something true. I didn't plan to play tonight. I was actually hoping you wouldn't ask. Then why did you say yes? Bruce thought for a moment. Because you challenged me. It's the same reason I break boards, the same reason I demonstrate techniques in front of a crowd. When someone asks, can you really do this? The only honest answer is to show them. Carson smiled, not the television smile, the real one. I'm glad I asked. And somewhere in the silence that followed, 20 million people felt the same way.